So one for the ages. It's that gentleman. He's the head coach, Steve Ragsdale. What's going on, Hall of Famer? How you doing?
Age is the key word here. I'm doing
Coach,
good if I could get my eyes open.
you look great. You look great. We're waiting on Marty. Let me ask you. What I know you were watching. You coached the game. What did you think of the end of the UConn Duke game yesterday?
Well,
Wow.
actually, I wasn't watching
Oh,
because
okay.
my daughter, who lives in Roanoke, wanted to meet us, my wife and I, in Christiansburg for lunch yesterday. So, but I did just see it on Sports Center, the last shot. Now I couldn't tell whether there was any defenders beyond half court for UConn, and the only players down there were Duke players, or what exactly, where everybody was on the court. All I could tell was that the Duke player was double teamed, and just tried to lob it kind of
Yeah.
down the floor, and they deflected it. So I mean, think about the odds and then the guy hitting that long 3-pointer, and he's just a freshman, I think, right? And So that was amazing play, man. I'm telling you, heartbreaker for Duke, but somebody always wins and somebody always loses. But that was, I think, the even more than the last shot, which was amazing, was the comeback.
Absolutely.
Down 15 at halftime, and to come back and win the ball game. It shows a lot of heart on UConn's part. But I didn't actually see the game live, so.
Well, it was a crazy shot. I mean, that's a long shot. That was a 30-plus footer, man. He's just
Yeah,
a
yeah,
monster.
yeah. They talk about 30 footers. He had a 30 footer. Well, that was a 30
That was
footer.
a 30-footer. What's your take, Coach, on the development of the three-point line? Has the game become too reliant on that? Did Steph Curry actually set the game back a little bit? Because when you were coaching and when I was playing, I mean, it was a little different. I mean, I understand it's great. There's some things that could change the game, but is it too relied on now by so many players?
I've got mixed feelings on it myself. Back when I was growing up in the NBA, you had guys like Jerry West and Oscar Robertson, and they used to talk about Oscar Robertson, how he would get as close to the basket as he could possibly get to shoot the ball, and he would, just do that. And I can remember playing in high school. Our coach, Bill Patterson, who was a super coach, used to talk about, hey, we want to get an open 15-footer, or a layup. And so the three-pointer, one thing I don't like about it for sure is it's turned the game into, you'll watch these games and they'll send two people down, I guess their best shooters, down into the corner because that's the shortest three-point shot there is. And then the other three are out there playing 3 versus 3, and it's basically turned into a pick and roll game. They like talking about Duke. I was watching Duke and Virginia, I guess it was, in the ACC final. And Duke, all they did was the big Boozer kid. I forget his first name there, but he would have the ball around, out in the 3-point area and at the top of the key, and they would have a small guy come over and screen him. All right, and he would come over, or either that, or he would screen a small guy and force the other team to switch, and so there would end up on the big Boozer player, there'd be a small guy guarding him, and on the smaller player who set the screen or got screened, whichever was the case, had a big guy covering him. So it forced a mismatch there, which is smart coaching. But it's just turned the game, I think, more into just a pick and roll type of thing. But it's exciting, just like that play yesterday. That couldn't have happened in the old days. It has sent the game into overtime. So I've got mixed feelings on it.
I mean, I like to see guys get hot, and it's cool when they can make a bunch of shots. But it's just
Yeah.
everybody now, even the big guys, like to stay behind the line. It seems like too often,
Yeah, I agree with that. But something it does point out, talking about the big guys, used to be the idea was, hey, if you're, a big guy, you can't shoot from outside. Well, that's really not the case when you think about it. They probably couldn't shoot up from outside because they never got to shoot from outside. They didn't have to. They go down and get on the box and just work to get position. I'll tell you something, since you opened up, asked me a question.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things I don't like about what's happened to at least college basketball. It's probably the same everywhere. I don't watch the pros during the regular season.
No.
I'll watch them some during the playoffs. But is this just backing the guy down, these big guys, just backing the guy down under the basket. And it's got to be a foul. It's got to be a foul. He'll hit him, and you'll see the defensive guy bounce back. And then he'll hit him again. You lower his shoulder, and the defensive guy will back up a few steps. And I don't know all the rules and everything, but if think about it. If the defensive guy didn't back up when he gets hit, if he kept his feet stationary, he'd get knocked flat on his back. It's impossible to stand up with 2 feet that are parallel there and get hit with somebody's shoulder and not fall down. So he's got 2 choices. He's either got to, give a little ground, even though he's not trying to give ground, but you can't hold your own if your feet are like parallel. You need to have one in behind the other if you're going to hold your ground. But if you do that, you can't guard the guy. He's going to go around you. So this thing of getting the ball to the big guy underneath, and he just backs his way down till he's right under the basket and then sticks it in the basket. And that's not basketball in my book. That's football.
It does
wrestling.
Like, yeah.
And so I don't like that at all. And I'm going to tell you another thing I don't like. It's kind of along those same lines. You never see the 3-second call in basketball anymore. Those guys go down there and they just park there. And I'll watch a game and I'll sit and specifically watch that. And it could be called numerous times in a game. And I don't think I've seen it called all season. And I don't watch a lot of college basketball like I used to, but I watch a good bit, and no 3-point call ever. And they're doing that thing I just talked about, and that probably takes them, if they get the ball around the free throw line, probably takes them 3 seconds to get down to the basket.
It does.
Yep. And so that's ridiculous. Those are kind of 2 pet peeves of mine.
I hate the 3-second thing. You're exactly. It's incredible to me. It's how they just let. And sometimes they'll just call it out of the blue. Like, oh yeah, there's one. We'll go ahead and call that one.
Yeah. And then there's no consistency there. But so I'm trying to think if there's anything else I dislike. The 3-point, like I said, the 3-point thing, I've got mixed feelings on that. But it does add excitement to the game. I guess the next thing, they'll add a 5-point circle out there.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, why not make it like where that kid made the shot? They'll start making it like a 4 or 5 point shot or something.
yeah. And so the offense will just bring the ball up to half court and sling it, and practice will be all about every player on the team is back there heaving up 5 pointers. Uh, yeah.
The one thing
So
I
I don't
like, I
know.
do like, Coach, I do like the employment of the shot clock. Now I know it's not mandatory. I don't believe still in Virginia. Maybe I'm wrong. It should be,
In high
but
school, you're
yeah,
talking
in high
about?
school, yeah, I wish that were something that was universal as well in high school basketball. It had to be tough back when you were coaching sometimes, right? Teams were just holding the ball for a long
Um,
time.
yeah, yeah. Well, go. What brought it on was probably Dean Smith in the four corners down
Yes.
in North Carolina. I remember one year in particular. I don't know what year it was. And of course, they had Phil Ford. He was the guy that was
Yep.
handling the ball all the time, and God, he was great.
Yeah. It
And
was.
but I mean, in the ACC tournament, which at that time that was probably the only college tournament at the end of the season. There may have been one or two others. Maybe the Southern Conference had one, uh, a tournament at the end of the season. But the ACC tournament was it, and it brought on all these other. Everybody has a tournament now, and North Carolina. I think they won the ACC tournament the year I'm talking about. I don't remember which year it was, but the scores were like 20-18 and 15-12, and well, of course there was no 3-point shot then, but
Right. Right.
yeah, I think the shot clock is great. It makes them play basketball instead of play keep away, and yeah, I mean, these people are up in the bleachers in Greensboro. They always had it in Greensboro at that time, and they're there to see 3 great days of basketball. And when they're watching North Carolina, it's like 3 days of keep away.
What's
And
up, Marty Dog?
What up, my friends? How y'all doing today?
Good, man. How are
hey,
you?
Marty, how you doing?
I'm fabulous. I'm fabulous. Trying to figure out what country I'm in, what town I'm
You
in.
down in Martinsville yesterday?
I was not. I was not in
Yeah.
Martinsville yesterday. I was right here in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Okay.
I went to Ireland a couple weeks ago. I guess last week. I don't even know when it was, but to do a feature piece on Rory McIlroy. Went to his
That's
Oh
cool.
man.
home golf course that he grew up playing. His dad was the barkeep there. His mom worked third shift at a 3M factory, stuffing rolls of tape into boxes in order to fund Rory's career and the sacrifices that they made to make sure that their prodigious, son's talent was maximized. And now here he is, one of 6 Grand Slam champions ever. Having won the Masters tournament last year, and we're getting prepared for that. I leave in 6 days. I leave the evening of Easter Sunday, next Sunday, and we'll go down to the Mother Church and bow at the entrance to the single greatest sporting venue on the planet Earth.
Pimento cheese sandwiches to be had, correct?
Yes, very affordable ones.
That's right.
In a time when you go to a ball game these days,
Oh.
you're coming off the hip big time, man, for your concessions. But at Augusta, they still keep the prices super low, and you won't see a single label. There will be no branding whatsoever other than the Masters branding. And look, that place is very special. That place is the way that the membership runs the club is impeccable, and it's one of the only places left. And Coach, I'm sure this is something that sticks in your craw. Is anymore we don't consume sports with our feet planted where we are.
Yes.
Because we're distracted by the iPhone screen. Everybody wants to get their little social media clip. But at Augusta, you can't have your phone. And that is a hard and fast rule. And if you do have your phone, we'll see you in the next life because you ain't coming back. But it is an incredible energy because you are genuinely immersed in the event with the people that you are there with. And you are watching this history, because every time you're at Augusta, it's an historic moment. You're watching this history through the film strip of your soul rather than through the screen on your iPhone. And there's just not a lot of places anymore where that is the case. And I just love, there's not enough superlatives for me to describe my appreciation for not just that place in general, but the blessing of being someone who gets to kind of bring that storytelling to the world.
Well, speaking of iPhones, you're talking to a public educator here.
Oh, I can't imagine.
Man, when, you know, iPhones came in and you know, the school administrators, they didn't know how to handle it. The teachers didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know how to handle it. And, you know, it just opened up so many possibilities, some good, but most bad, in my opinion. You know, you could have kid A in the back corner back there and kid B up here in the front corner. And if you were given a test, you know, kid A could have his iPhone down in his lap, you know, texting kid B up in the front corner how to do number 3 on the test, you know, and
I wish I had that when I was in your class.
And worse than that was when you were, you know, trying to show them how to do something. You know, you're up at the front, you know, working a problem. I taught math, and you know, one of them's back there texting their boyfriend, you know, in the back room. And it just really opened up a can of beans that
how
for the most part wasn't very good, you know.
I always wonder how coaches today, you know, because with social media, it's a lot of look at me in today's society. And that's something that you did not tolerate. I mean, even the slightest bit. We were a team, no matter if you were the best player on the roster or you were a contributor on the scrub offense. Everybody was a part of that team and an integral piece of the overall success. There wasn't a whole lot of looking at me stuff going on, at least while you were watching. We might have tried to get it. I remember one time, Rick, you will love this story. All right, Coach, you may or may not remember this.
I probably won't remember because I can't remember my middle name anymore.
So in 1992, which was a state championship caliber football team, we should have won the state championship that year too. I'm sure Danny Ratcliffe and Stevie Steele and Matt McGuire and Joey Caldwell and all those guys that were seniors that year would agree. Melvin Williams, great players all. We lose to Lebanon. All right, at their place in the state semifinals. And Rayfield Milton was a sophomore that year. I was a junior that year. And we came running out of the locker room for pregame, Rick, and we had taken athletic tape, of which, because we were Giles High School, we had like 3 rolls for the whole team. And Rayfield and I had put athletic tape on, like spat at our cleats, like put athletic tape around our cleats. And we ran out onto the football field, and the second that we locked eyes with Coach, he went like, I won't repeat what he said, but he pointed back at the locker room and said, but you're going to go back in there and cut that off, and you are going to buy me new rolls of tape that you just wasted with your prima donna crap.
Hey.
And you were right, by the way.
Yeah, that's for sure. Going back to the phone thing, all right, a couple stories I'm thinking about here was how we handled that in football, okay, going to the games. Now, you know, God almighty, this is something I guarantee you, if you go to a college football game and you watch the team come off the bus,
Oh yeah.
and they're all going to have their headphones on, and and this and that, and if you recall, when we were going to the game on a bus, and I think we tended in a lot of cases to play better on the road than we did at home. I don't know that that's actually true, but
that's an inaccurate statement.
We had a
You never lost at home.
well, no, I'll tell you why. Well, we had a great following on the road. It doesn't matter whether we played home or away. We were going to have a great fan base there. All right. But if you recall, I told you all when we got on the bus, hey, I don't want to see any headphones on.
Yep.
I don't want to see any cell phones. I want you doing one of two things.
Mental reps.
You either take a nap on the way to the game, because at the end of a school day, if you've done what you should have done in the classroom, you're tired. You've used your brain, if you've got one. You've used.
The jury was out on that for us.
If capital IF, if you've got a brain, you've used it a lot during the day, and you're tired. That takes energy. Okay, so take a nap so you'll be fresh. Okay, or if you don't do that, then you think about the ball game coming up tonight and get yourself mentally prepared. Go over in your own mind what you've got to do, what your responsibilities are, and everything like that on the way to the game. And I think it helped focus us to the task at hand. All right, instead of I don't know. I didn't like the idea of listening to music on the way. And the reason I say that, and the analogy I use, is I've been to Omaha Beach, all right, in Normandy. I've been there twice, and I was there both times at 6:30 in the morning on June the 6th, which is when the 29th Infantry Division hit the beach, okay, along with the 1st Infantry Division at Omaha Beach, okay? And I think, you reckon those guys were listening to their headphones coming in on those landing craft?
I don't.
No way. All right. I guarantee you they were thinking about the task at hand, and maybe throwing up, and maybe doing some other things in their pants, okay, because they knew they were facing a life and death situation. Now, I don't want to come even close to, saying that a football game is like that, but I used that analogy in my own head. Football is, and I don't want to use the word, and I don't like this phrase, because again, it's completely absurd. You're not going to war, but you're getting in a fight out there. All right, not physically with your fists. You better not be, but it's rough, it's rugged, it's aggressive, it's hitting, it's getting hit. All right, and we're not going to a party tonight. We're going to a football game. And when you hit that field, you got to be ready to go get them. And so I didn't like to see that stuff on the way to the game. On the way back, we win. Hell, I'll get my phone and my and everything like that. And
what would you be listening to?
One thing that took me a long time to learn, when I first started coaching, I'd sit up in the front of the bus.
Yeah.
On the front seat.
Always.
Well, it took me, I don't know how many years, but too many, to realize the place I should have been was in the back of the bus. because from the back of the bus, you can see everything that's going on. You can't see it in the front of the bus.
Yeah, but there was just so much intimidation that for us, for guys that played for you, there was just so much intimidation that came with, all right, we're all on this school bus getting ready to drive 74 hours to Grayson County or somewhere.
That's what yeah.
I mean, Rick, what you got to understand is for us, Grayson County felt like Arkansas.
Sure.
And because we never went anywhere. Like we didn't growing up in Parisburg, we didn't go places. We're in Parisburg. So when we had a road game in Galax or Grayson County, or even more pronounced, a playoff game in Lebanon or Hayside or Grundy or somewhere, we may as well have drove to Pluto. and so getting on those buses and being back there in, whatever position we always sat in, we were a superstitious lot. A lot of kids
you wasn't superstitious. I assigned you a seat at the beginning of the season.
Maybe that's why we sat in the same place.
You had to sit in an assigned seat. I sat down before we took our first bus trip, and I decided who I wanted sitting with who.
Now, how did you gauge that? What was your philosophy on who sat with whom?
Well,
good question.
Shoot, I don't know everything that went into it, Marty. Maybe you got a lineman sitting with a back, so that the back and the lineman can get to know each other better because they're kind of relying on each other. Certainly that offensive back is relying on that offensive lineman. So I interrupted you there. So go ahead on what you were saying. But I don't remember exactly how I did it. But I didn't want buddies sitting together, necessarily.
You just said a culture. Just said a culture that was understood.
Right.
We didn't have to ask. We knew it was not only established well before we got there, and certainly the guys that came after me, it was well established because you had won multiple state championships at that point, and the expectation was just understood, and the way you conducted yourself was understood, and the culture of toughness and togetherness and precision and preparedness and all of those things it's almost like they injected it in our veins in kindergarten. Or something, because we just knew growing up, if we were going to play Spartan football for Steve Ragsdale and Rusty Kelly and Jeff Williams, etc., that's what was expected of us. Now, that doesn't mean that as 16 and 17-year-old kids, we didn't veer, because we did veer. I remember distinctly, and wrote this in my book, Never Settle, when I talked about our football program in that book. I remember vividly one day we were doing field goal practice, extra point practice. And I was belly aching about wanting to be done with practice and go see my girlfriend or whatever I was belly aching about.
You didn't have a girlfriend. What are you talking about?
Coach, you don't know game, buddy. You don't know that Parisburg game I had, buddy. But I was belly aching and moaning about
dreaming.
it. Yeah, I am dreaming. That's a fact, man. But Coach Williams was in charge. Coach had charged Coach Williams with getting our little field goal unit prepared. And I was down there bitching and moaning. And Coach Williams just all of a sudden was like, stop. You need to shut up. You have no idea how precious this time, this team, this moment is in your life. This is the greatest moments of your life, and you're too young to see it. So was I. But I would die. I would cut off limbs. I would do anything to go back and strap up one more time under those lights right down that hill and have the opportunity to represent this logo and this community one more time. And, we're kind of like, sure, dude, whatever, man. Your bike, your pearl snap bike coaching shorts are too tight.
Yeah.
But he was right. I mean, he was right.
100%.
He couldn't have been more right. It was some of the, like, I mean, those moments. I was talking about, Coach, I was talking about that team a couple of days ago. I was down in Fort Worth on Saturday to do a keynote speech to thousands of cattle raisers in Texas. And the CEO of the company was up there with me, asking me questions and whatnot. And I was talking about how grateful I am that it was such a blessing to grow up in rural America, because we had an upbringing and an experience where you did strive to help your neighbor. You did understand what it is to get your hands dirty and work hard. And all of that was ingrained in all of us. And I am so full of gratitude for that type of upbringing. And I mentioned, you know, our team in that. It is rare, very rare in this life where we go and move and do so much so quickly. The here and gone is a millisecond, and relationships as a result of that become fleeting in many cases. I still talk regularly, if not daily, with 10 or more. I talked to Danny Ratcliffe last night, and I don't see him. Our daily interaction is not existent because he lives in Parisburg and I live here. But I know if I call him, or if he calls me or asks me to call him, I'm going to call him. And that is all born and raised within what we experienced under Coach.
Absolutely.
Well, wait till you get my age, man. And I'm serious here now. You look back on your life and the experiences that you've had, and the first thing you realize is life is fleeting. Life itself is fleeting. And it's I don't even know how to explain it, but the moments in your life that are kind of the highlights, you know, they're there in your brain, and you look back on them and you realize how important and wonderful they were, and still are in your memory. And you would, in a lot of cases, give almost anything to go back and experience them again. And you can't do it. You just can't do it. And so, you know what they say, that whatever it is wasted on the youth, on the young. You know, to some degree, it's true. But maybe that's a good thing. Maybe while you're going through it, you just are having fun and doing it and everything like that. And maybe if you weren't, like, you know, kind of happy-go-lucky at that point in your life, maybe it would take away, you know, because when you get older, you look back on your youth and you say, man, what a great time that was. I wish I'd appreciated it more. Yep. Well, maybe if you weren't, you know, halfway out of your mind, you wouldn't have had as much fun, you know. So
true, very true.
Kind of a give and take type thing. I want to hit one other thing while I'm thinking about it before I forget it, that you mentioned earlier, Marty, I think, and that was the guys on the team who were not starters. Mm-hmm. All right. Much less, you know, stars on the team. I always had the greatest admiration for those kids that were busting their tail in and day out, knowing that they weren't, you know, going to play a lot, if any, on Friday night, you know, but I just don't even know how. I'm not going to mention names, but I was in my house this winter, and somebody knocked on the front door. And I went to the front door, and there stood this, well, he's not a young man anymore. He's a middle-aged man or older. And he wasn't a starter on our teams, but he was there every single day, busting his tail, and you know, never missed a practice type of guy. You didn't even know he was there. He was just doing the best he could do, and what he did was valuable for the team, because you can't learn how to run your offense against thin air over there. Okay. You got to have some opposition. And the better the opposition is in practice, the better you're going to be on Friday night. And so he fit into that mold. He wasn't going to be a star on Friday night. He probably wouldn't even play on Friday night. But he was a darn good kid, and he did the best he could do, and he was out there day in and day out helping the team get better. So I invited him in, of course, and he had his son with him. And his son is he's a grown man himself. All right. And you know, we sat down and talked, and this player, you know, told me how much he thought of me. Okay. And which I really appreciated. But I told him, I said, look, I think more of you than you think of me, because you accomplish so much by just sticking in there day in and day out. I'll take it to the last step. I said, what are you doing now? Well, you know, where's life taking you? You know, I've counted up how many players did I coach during my 30-year tenure as head football coach. And I also coached the 3 years prior to that, 8th grade coach. And I figure, okay, well, I figured it up, and I'm thinking 450 kids. All right, maybe give or take a few. All right. And I can't remember all their names for sure. I can't remember what they all look like, but I'll tell you one thing, I got a heck of a lot of admiration for them. All right. And I take it further than that. I love them. Okay. They've got a special feeling. I've got a special feeling for them. I always put young people that went through Giles High School in kind of one of three buckets. Okay. The ones that I coached, and I don't like to use the phrase who played for me, because they didn't play for me. They played because they liked to play whatever sport it was, either football or basketball. All right. Because I coached both of them for about 10 years. Okay. All right. And so one of three buckets. The ones that I had coached go into bucket number one. I just got just a special feeling for those guys. Number two were the ones that I had in class. All right. But, you know, and I took great pride in my teaching, because I always felt like that if a sport has no educational value, I think we talked about this in an earlier show, it should not be part of the high school setting. Okay. But I do think it's got a valuable place. All right. I think kids learn a lot by competitive sports, by participating in competitive sports. And then number three are the kids that are in the school, but I neither coached nor taught in class. All right. Now, going back to this young man I was talking about, I said, hey, what do you do? What have you been doing? Well, it turns out he went in the Army, and he is trained to work on. Well, he's retired now. He's no longer in the military, but he was trained to work on these long-range ballistic missiles.
Oh, wow.
All
Interesting.
right? He had special training to go down in these tunnels down in the Midwest out there and literally work on these long-range ballistic missiles. I'm thinking, you're kidding me. And that just shows you what I was, the privilege I had to work with guys like that and guys like you, all right, who are going around the country talking to people about, like you're talking about down in Texas, and Danny Ratcliffe, and go on down the list. And even guys that I had the discipline, I love them all. Okay. It's just a special bond. But the point I wanted to make was that, they all have a role in life after they get out of high school. And like that young man, incredible. I'm like, I'm sitting there and I'm in awe of him, what he's done with his life, So that's that. But yeah.
But doesn't it say so much, Coach, that individual thought enough of you and had so much respect for you, for the way that you helped form our sensibilities and our work ethics and our approach to trying to maximize whatever gifts we were given, because we all have a different lot. Some people go into the military after high school and serve our great country. Some people go to college. Some people become pipe fitters, or they go into the workforce in some way, shape, or form. But all of us that went through your program, no matter how big of idiots we were, we had a very keen understanding of the incredible value of shared sacrifice, because that was the entire program. Is all of us, it wasn't somebody who screwed up. If somebody screwed up, we all ran that hill together because that person screwed up. We all were in that same energy all the time. And so we all entered whatever our postgraduate plans and experience were. All of us went into that with a better understanding and better preparation than most have, for sure.
Well,
and it says a lot about you that gentleman walked up to your door to say thank you and to share and offer his gratitude and to introduce that gratitude to his son.
Absolutely.
Marty, I going back to this young man, and I love nothing more than having the privilege of talking to former players. That I just love that, and so with him and others, I want to fill Rick in on, you referred to the hill.
The hill.
Right?
Post-traumatic stress
The
over
hill.
here, man.
Let me give Rick the story, the lowdown on that. Rick, when I was a kid, and my dad was the head football coach at Narrows High School. He started football there in the early 30s.
Right.
He was raised on a tobacco farm down in Eastern Virginia. And if you've ever been on a tobacco farm, even to this day, that is hard work. No mechanization. Everything's got to be done by hand. Okay. So anyway, my dad was the head football coach, and everywhere my dad went, I went, as a little kid, just growing up. He'd go down to practice, in August. I went to practice in August. Okay. And let me tell you what their practice consisted of. At that time, there was no 5 days in shorts. The first morning, which was August the 15th, I think they start practice too early now. This August the 1st thing is ridiculous. All right. When I used to go to the coaching clinic every summer, and they would emphasize, make sure you don't, let kids overheat. And I'm thinking to myself, well, move practice back to September if you don't want them to overheat. Don't let them be out there in the middle of August, playing football. That's crazy. And I still think that. All right. But anyway, I'm getting off topic a little bit there. So anyway, I'd go with my dad down to practice and watch his practice. So they go out August 15th in full pads. Okay. They do their lineup and do their calisthenics, just very similar to what we did, Marty. And then once their calisthenics were over, they lined up 11 on 11.
Wow.
And ran every single play that they were going to run all year long.
That's crazy talk.
First morning out.
Crazy talk.
All right. And they did that. And I'm going to give you one guess what they ended practice. The two things they ended.
One-on-ones. Line it up. One-on-ones. One-on-ones.
They went one-on-one.
And then they ran the hill.
Practice, and that was before they did what?
Ran the hill.
Ran the hill. All right. There's a hill if you go down to Narrows High School to Ragsdale Field, named after my father, to a ball game. You'll see, the home bleachers over there on one side, and you'll see a concession stand up on the hill.
Yeah.
All right.
See it right now.
The hill that's below that concession stand is where Dad had his team run the hill. They started kind of down there in the corner next to the old high school, and they went up the hill to just right underneath what is now the concession stand. It didn't used to be there when I was a little kid. And then they came down the hill over there next to where the permanent concrete bleachers are. And they just made a circle around there. And I don't remember how many they would run.
Too many.
But they ran the hill. And I'm going to tell you, that hill is the best conditioner I think that there is. All right. And Rick, when I say run the hill, we had a very steep hill next to our field.
Does my heart good to hear you admit that.
And it was very steep hill. Now the hill I had the kids run was steeper than the one my dad had. It wasn't as long as the one he had, but it was steeper. And so they walked down one. And what I loved about the hill was it mirrored a football game.
Sadistic.
You walk down one side of the hill, and that's like getting up off the ground after a play and getting back in the huddle. Yeah. So you get down to the bottom, and so you got, some time to kind of regroup and get your breath and everything like that. And then you got to sprint. You've got to sprint up the other side. It's like a constant just circle around there. You walk down one side, walk across the bottom, you sprint up the other side. And what I like about that is you cannot defy gravity. Gravity is at work. If you're running laps, all right, which they've got their place, but there's no gravity involved. So you can slough off a little bit, running laps. But on that hill, you got to get from the bottom to the top.
In full pads, just for the record.
Full pads with your helmet on.
Yeah, of course.
And there's no cheating it. And that builds a lot of things, starting with character.
Yeah.
Okay. And stickum, toughness. All right. But it builds your legs, your hips and legs. And that is what you use in the game of football, are your hips and your legs. That's where your base is. He's going down to Augusta this week. You reckon Jack Nicklaus had strong quads and hips?
I do reckon.
And
Yes,
that,
sir.
We reckon.
okay, the base of a golf swing are your legs. So that hill built those hips and legs. It built your heart, not just the physical functioning of your heart, but your heart, you know, your stickum, your toughness. Okay. But it definitely built the physical, you know, part of what your heart does, which is pump blood to your body. And that blood contains oxygen, which your muscles burn to allow you to play. All right.
Science.
And there was no cheating it.
No, there wasn't.
You had to get to the bottom to the top.
I think too. Look.
And after games, we had a little thing where I don't forget the numbers exactly, but we would start with a set number of times on the hill for the day. We run
penalties.
Yeah. Once we got into the regular season, we only ran the hill one day a week. Now in preseason, we'd run it every day.
Yeah, it was great.
Getting ready. During the season, it would be one day a week. And I think that was probably on Monday.
I think it might have been, Monday or Tuesday.
It was either Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah,
no way it would have been Wednesday. Yeah. That's too close to game time. So, but we'd start out with a base number, like let's say 5, okay? And then we would add to it for mistakes like turnovers or penalties. Okay. That would be an add-on. Any penalty we had or any turnover we had, we'd add to it. So it might get up to 10, let's say. God, that's a lot on that hill, 10.
Indeed.
Particularly at the end of practice after you've done one-on-one.
Indeed.
All right. That's a lot. Okay. But so I thought, well, if we're going to add ones on, we got to give them a way to take ones off. All right. We got to, reinforce good behavior, punish bad behavior, reinforce good behavior. So if we forced a turnover, we take one off. I can't remember what else, maybe, I don't know, but so anyway,
I feel like knockdown blocks might have had some impact.
Yeah, that was we kept a chart. Coach Kelly did this on the board.
Maybe if it was a certain sum of knockdown blocks. We had three things, and those kids would run to that bulletin board when they came in on Monday to see. We would chart 3 things, what we called knockdown blocks, and turnovers, not our turnovers, but the other team's turnover. All right, if we turn them over, like let's say you tackled a guy and then somebody else recovered it. Well, we give the kid that forced the fumble a check mark, and the kid that recovered it a check mark. Okay, that's a turnover category. And then we always had a special teams player of the week that we just chose for doing whatever, and so we had ways that we could take some off of that. Let's say it was 5, and I think it was 5 we started with during the season. And so usually we'd probably end up running a few more than that, and that was after we did our one-on-one thing. And one-on-one, man, I'm gonna tell you, brutal. That's where we made our football team. Right, brutal, there. Man. We and I watched that with my dad's teams, Rick.
Yeah, it was.
Listen, here's what you got to understand. There's a couple points that need to be made here based off of Coach's points that he made there. First of all, the hill. All right. Yes, it's obvious that the physical impact of that conviction to run that mountain every week was we won a lot of games in the fourth quarter. We were better conditioned than a lot of our opponents. Maybe not all, but we weren't. We most of the time we're not going to be beat because we were tired. Number two, as important as the physical impact of that hill was, the psychological impact was twofold. It goes back to that value of shared sacrifice, and it goes back to like your mind in moments like that after you've had, we didn't pussyfoot around. We knocked crap out of each other in football practice. Like we weren't, prancing around, running, 7-on-7. We were hitting each other. Our practices were hard. After that whole day of school that Coach talked about, which, by the way, he never acknowledged while we were playing, that we should be tired after a long day of learning at Giles High School. But the psychological piece of that to reset yourself and know that you can't fake it, like he was just saying, in order to get up that hill in full pads, you had to want it. You just had to want it. And there's a resonant and residual effect of that has a very long runway when you get into November and you get into fourth quarters against really talented, well-coached, disciplined opponents that indisputably benefited us. But that does not mean that on Monday, October 3rd, we weren't cussing all the way up that hill, because we were cussing all the way up that hill. No doubt about it. But one-on-ones, all right, let me just paint this one-on-one picture for you real quick. This is what one-on-one is, okay? All of us section off into pairs. This is at the end of practice, all right? Very last thing we do in practice. We pair off and we get in a three-point stance.
All right, now wait a minute. Stop before you go any further. You didn't pair yourself off.
I know.
The coaches, we paired them off.
Yeah.
I would go right down the list. I'd say, okay, Marty, you and so-and-so, you're together today, okay? Or this week. I probably would do it on a weekly basis because we did one-on-one every single day.
Indeed.
To end practice. All right, and Joe, and nobody was we didn't have our quarterback. We don't have a quarterback in our single wing offense, but we didn't have our tailbacks who very seldom blocked. We didn't have them, over there, lollygagging around, throwing the football back and forth.
There was no unity.
They were doing some form of contact. Now, I'd be careful with them because I didn't want one of them to get a shoulder injury, out there in practice or something like that. But everybody else
that didn't
was
apply to
doing
most of us.
one-on-one. All right. And so go ahead, Marty. Go ahead.
I used to hate it so bad because, I was 138 pounds soaking wet. I was a string bean. And I used to hate it because I used to cringe wondering what Coach was going to say about who my opponent.
Well, now
Marty, Peter Janey. I was like, damn it.
I never mismatched a kid, somebody that was, small and maybe weak with somebody that was just going to murder them. I wanted every kid to have a equal chance in there, and I didn't want anybody to get hurt, although it's hard to get hurt when you're only a foot apart. Go ahead, Marty.
We would line up. All right, Rick, get in the three-point stance, faced off against one another. They blow the whistle. You hit each other, and you drive your feet until they blow the whistle again.
Right. Yeah.
And that might be 2 seconds. or that might be depending on whether we did it right or not. It might be 15 seconds.
Well,
And
and few things in there.
It sucked in every single way.
First of all, we believed, and I believe to this very day, it goes back to those legs and hips.
Yep.
All right. Why do we do all those squats and stuff in the weight room? Okay. Because you derive your power from your legs and your hips. You don't block with your arms like I watch on TV every Saturday and Sunday. You block with your hips and legs. At least you do if you're at Giles High School, all right? Because that's what is stronger, your hips and legs or your arms and chest? It's a no-brainer. If your car breaks down and you got to push it to get it started, do you go out there and just stand there and push it with your arms? No. What do? You bend over so you've got a good angle. You don't stand straight up and push with your arms. You bend over and you use your hips and legs to drive that car. All right. And I watch this blocking on TV, blocking. I'll put that in quotations. It's not blocking, it's wrestling. It's holding and God, it drives me nuts. They'll hold for a few seconds and their first move is their arms go out so they can grab the defender. Yep. And before the play is over, they're turned around looking over their shoulder to see what's going on. Every time I watch that stuff, I'm thinking to myself, my God, I'd have a heart attack coaching that. You know, if I caught a kid looking at the ball carrier before the whistle blew, you in big trouble. All right. And blocking wise, if your man is not on the ground, you haven't done it as good as it can be done. So we had a category, like I was talking about earlier, that we put up on a chart on the bulletin board for every game, knockdown blocks. And a knockdown block means your man is off of his feet. Hard to make a tackle when you're on your back and somebody's on top of you looking you in the eyeballs.
That's right.
All right. So I don't know why I said that, but anyway, go ahead, Marty.
What?
Oh, we were talking about one-on-one. So the one-on-one, you line up and your opponent is right across from you, and I'd offset them just enough I didn't want them leading with their head. I want them leading with their shoulder, but obviously the head is going to be part of the contact, but I don't want them hitting with the top of the head. That's a point of emphasis. There were two things that I emphasized I didn't want to see. You don't hit with the top of your head because that's how you break your neck. All right. Your spine straightens out. And when you take that blow, it compresses things, and those vertebrae in your neck have got to go somewhere. It's kind of like taking a spring and pressing it together. It's going to pop out one way or another. And so that's what happens when you get somebody, hitting with the top of their head and they break their neck. And we don't want to see that for sure. So I never used, and coaches, we never use the word head. And I hate to hear these guys on TV, commentators, say, well, he lowered his head. God, no. Don't lower your head on a football field. And the second thing you don't do on a football field is let your feet stop moving. If you are standing next to the pile, flat-footed, with your feet planted in the ground, you're just asking for a knee injury. Somebody comes along to get in on the pile, so to speak, and they hit your knee instead. So 2 things you don't do on a football field. Do not lower your head, but that's the natural instinct to lower your head. If somebody throws a baseball at you and it's going to hit you between the eyes, what do? Lower your head, all right? And don't stop your feet. Don't lower your head. Keep your head up. Keep your feet moving. Those are the 2 main rules, okay? And so going back to the one-on-one. So you're lined up and you're offset a little bit and you're looking each other eyeball to eyeball. And Marty said something there that wasn't right. We didn't hit the whistle. We used our cadence that we used in the game, okay? Same cadence given by the same person, our blocking back, all right, would give our count, snap count, all right? And so we go on the snap count. And then at the end of that one, we'd say, okay, boys, well, it would work like this. On Monday during the season, we would go 3 times with each shoulder. 1 straight ahead, 1 at a 45-degree angle, and 1 at like a reach block where you had to take like a 45-degree angle in one direction, say with your right foot, and then block with your left shoulder, okay? And all those were game condition things because those were all things that you were going to do in a ball game blocking, all right? So we go 3 times with the right shoulder, 3 times with the left shoulder. On Tuesday, it'd be 2 with the right, 2 with the left. On Wednesday, it'd be 1 and 1. On Thursday, we wouldn't do it, okay? And the coaches, there were at the end of my coaching career where there were 5 coaches. We had 5 coaches, and we had a really good staff. Each coach was great, and they knew what their role was. Not just position role, but who's going to fix the equipment. We don't have equipment managers at Giles High School. I'm sorry, and so it helps to have somebody on the staff who can fix a helmet, if the buckle busts off. And so we had, each coach kind of knew his role, who was going to, and then most of the time they just did it automatically. I didn't have to say, hey, you're in charge of this and you're in charge of that. Who's going to pack the footballs for the away game on Friday night? I didn't have to tell anybody to do that or ask them to do it. They just did it. And I'm not mentioning names here because I don't want to leave anybody out or anything. All right. But so going back to the one-on-one. So we had 5 coaches. After each blow, bam, and they went on our cadence, but then they didn't stop till the whistle blew, just like a play in a game. All right. And I didn't want them down wallering around on the ground. We taught them, I want you coming off the ball. I want your back flat. Not like you see on TV where the first move is straight up. I want your back flat coming off that ball. And this is nothing but physics. Low man wins. But when you hit, I didn't want you to hit and go down. I wanted you to hit, and the force between both bodies coming together would automatically make you buckle like that. All right. So you would come off flat, backs flat, and bam, like that. It's like a wooden floor that buckles when it gets wet, and the individual boards expand and they run into each other and they buckle up. That's what I wanted. Not up and out, but out and up. Okay. And you keep your feet moving and driving the whole time. And okay. So when the whistle blew, then I would call on each coach. Coach Kelly, he would be watching, and the kids didn't know which coach was watching who.
Yeah, it sucked too.
All right, I could be standing on one side over here, and I could be watching Marty Smith over here on the other side. All right, Coach Kelly, what's your vote? Yay or nay?
Oh yeah, man. This was
Yay.
Oh, wow.
Coach Williams, what's your vote? Yay. Okay, Coach Strader, yours. Yay. Coach Ragsdale, yay. Coach Ellison, what was his vote going to be, Marty?
nay. Do it again.
Nay. Okay. So
Oh,
4
dude.
out of 5 were in agreement, but that meant that, and the coaches weren't watching the
It
same
didn't count.
two. So whoever those two were, man, they let the whole team down because that one don't count. We got to do that one again.
Again, the
All
beauty of
right.
shared sacrifice. Everybody has to do his job.
Rick,
It was like being on a jury trial, man.
That's what.
yeah,
It was like being on a jury
America's
trial
Got
every
Talent.
day.
It was great, so we might, we were going to do 3 on Monday with the right shoulder and 3 with the left, but it might end up being 10 and 10 or 5 and whatever. And so that was those 2 things there, and they were at the end of practice. They were already tired, and doing that one-on-one, man, that's hard. That's hard. That's physical. It's physical contact. But I believe, and I got this from my dad, I think that taught kids contact. All right. But it was at a short distance, that we had them like the same distance they would be apart in a ball game on the line of scrimmage, at the most 2 to 3 feet, okay, in there in tight quarters. So no way, I never got a kid hurt. I can remember doing one-on-one. All right, because they got equipment on and they're close together. Now, bull in the ring, which I did that one time, and I lost a kid with a shoulder injury for the entire season. And I thought to myself, and we've talked about this one on the show before, is, God, that is just stupid. Yeah. When are you going to line up a 220-pounder, which we didn't have many of those, and on a 170-pounder and let them run from 10 yards apart and hit each other? You're just asking for an injury. That don't happen usually on a football field. It happens some, but not much. So anyway, that one-on-one and that hit that hill, man, they were tired and worn out, and those were good physical conditioners. And it wasn't just conditioning. It was you're particularly with the one-on-one, you're learning your technique there, and you're learning how to hit, what it feels like to hit and get hit. So you get used to the contact. And you might have some kids that are like a little bit shy. I mean, on a football team, you got it's a full spectrum. Not every kid is out there because they love to play football. Most of them are, but that varies. I mean, some of them, I could sit here and name who they are, were just loved it. The contact and everything about it, the grit, the everything. But then on the other end of the spectrum, there were guys that were kind of, I don't know about this now, maybe they've never come out for football. And we tried to get kids out, we didn't expect kids to come out that, you may never played football before. God, I had some super players that we got out their junior year, and they spent that whole year getting run over top of. They'd be over there on defense against our offense. And when we drilled our offense, it was live, everything except we wouldn't let the backs be tackled to the ground. All right. Well, those guys over there on defense, say you got one of them over there that's never played football before, but they hang in there the whole season. And then they go home at the end of the season and they think it over, and they think back to what they've learned and how it felt. and they come back their senior year and they're a whole different story. And now they may not be a great passer or something like that, but you don't have to be able to pass to play nose guard. We had kids that played nose guard for us that were tiny, but they were quick and they were agile and they would chase that football relentlessly. And that's all we needed from our nose guard. I had some kids in there. I remember one kid, I'm not going to name names on this, but he could run full speed while he was 2 feet off the ground. I'm not exaggerating. He could motor, so we put our nose guard in there, head up on the center, and he was either going to slant right or slant left. Occasionally he'd go straight ahead, but mostly he was slanting right or slanting left. And his job was to beat that center and make that guard in the direction he was slanting block him. So a lot of times the idea was to tie up both of those players on the opposition, the center and the nose and the guard, because the center didn't know which way that nose guard was going to go. So, he was trying to play the run to the right. He's trying to step to his right and reach block him, so to speak. So anyway, God, I remember we had some nose guards and I told y'all a story about one there was nose guard over at Christiansburg. He ended up playing pass defense.
Right. Yeah.
Excuse me. But we had some, they were relentless. They would chase that ball from sideline to sideline. So that's it.
So I know you won a couple of state championships by 1 point.
Yeah, I think about
know
that.
If you ever lost a game on the last play, if you're John Shire.
Oh God! Yeah.
If you're John Shire, what do you say to your team when you've had control of the game for for 39 minutes of the game clock?
Well,
and you lose that way. How do you reconcile that?
I'll tell you something I learned the hard way, Marty. As a coach, you've got to learn as you go through things. And I learned a whole lot coaching from year to year, evaluating my performance, and I learned this, and I think it's a good rule to have kind of in general. And there's exceptions to everything. What you don't do is you don't go in and chew the team out or chew the player out because they messed up, on the last play of the game, or even, played like dogs and lost the game. Okay. Because, they're not out there trying to lose, they're out there trying to win. And sometimes the effort is better than others. And most of that goes back to their mindset, prior to the game and during the game. Some games, whatever the sport is, you just can't, as my dad used to have a saying, if the blood don't flow before the game, it's not going to flow during the game. And that's a good saying. It's you got to be in the right mindset. And this goes back to that listening to your headset and everything before the game. You got to be in the proper mindset, whether it be basketball or football. So, I once or twice I'd go in and we'd lost a game and lay into them after the game, and that doesn't work. Sometimes it might, you just kind of lay down the law. Hey boys, you got to make up your mind, what kind of team you want to have here, But my God, that kid last night, shoot fire. He's a freshman. And he's just, I saw him interviewing this morning on TV while I was waiting on our show here, and you could tell he was just heartbroken. He was laying the whole thing on himself. And
which is not true at all, by
which
the
is
way.
not true. You got to go back and look at the whole ball game.
Yeah, it's not.
You made some great plays probably at other points during the game, and you had some guys that made poor plays. So you happened to make a poor play on the last play of the game, but that one play didn't cost you the game. It's a series of plays. So
and the evolution of that final shot too was pretty brilliant.
Yeah.
The way so the steal happens, the ball is forwarded up to the right wing, and arguably
then pass right back to the other guy.
Right.
And he
arguably, UConn's best player passes up the game-winning attempt to give it to a more open player who, oh, by the way, is 35 feet from the bucket.
Yeah.
And who hits a shot that you're going to make 1 out of 10 unless you're Stephen Curry.
Right? Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. It was just, you cannot in any way. Caden Boozer should never – I know he feels that way because he's a team guy, and it was his turnover that was a catalyst for that moment. But he didn't lose that game by himself.
No.
I saw a similar thing happen with a UVA game 2 or 3 years ago in the NCAA tournament. And I can't remember exactly the circumstances, but it was similar. UVA had the lead, and the other team was pressing. And the kid that got the ball in bounds, I'm thinking took it and threw it up in the air or something like that to run the clock out. The clock didn't run out. The other team, got it and bang, hit a shot and won the game. And I can remember this. This goes way back. Dean Smith, North Carolina was playing Duke. And believe this or not, and this was for the 3-point shot, I'm pretty darn sure. North Carolina, they were notorious under Dean Smith for coming back at the end of games. He would save all his timeouts, and the minute they scored at the end of a game, timeout. If they were behind, timeout. So I don't know how many they get, let's say 3. He called, score a bucket, timeout. Make a steal, timeout. They came from 17 points down. No. I got that wrong. They came from 8 points down, I think it was, with 17 seconds left in the game.
Crazy.
Against Duke. And at that time, Duke, it was Dean Smith was still coaching. And Duke wasn't quite the Duke that we know today, okay? But they were still pretty darn good. And from 8 down in 17 seconds. And, heck, when I was in high school, we were playing Blacksburg. And Blacksburg was our nemesis. I'm talking basketball now. Blacksburg was our nemesis every darn year. Okay, and they had this was my junior year, and they had a really good player on their team. Rick Adlett was his name, and he went to the University of South Carolina on a full ride, and at that time, the University of South Carolina was in the ACC, and he went on to be a captain on their team his senior year on a team that did not lose a game in the regular season. Okay? And today, of course, they would go to the NCAA. At that time, you had to win the ACC tournament to go to the NCAAs. And they didn't have like 64 teams. It was only 32 or 16, something like that. So here they are undefeated. And they lose in the finals of the ACC tournament, and they stay home with 1 loss. But anyway, going back to Blacksburg, they were our nemesis, and we lost. We were playing in the New River District semifinals, and we were playing Blacksburg. And Rick Adlett was on Blacksburg's team. and they were very good, and they went on to win the state championship. We had a 5-point lead with 23 seconds left in the game. And I'm not going to get into the details, but we lost. The game was tied up when the buzzer went off to end the game, and a foul was called against one of our players, and a Blacksburg player, I can remember his name right now, I'm not going to say what it is, and he went to the free throw line and made the free throw to win the game.
Wow.
5-point lead with 23 seconds left to go in the game. Okay. So, those things happen. And, and like I said, they went on, y'all are probably familiar with Charlie, what was his name? He played over at Tech when they won the NIT tournament. He was from Harrisonburg. Him and Bobby, what was his name? He was from Norfolk.
Bobby
Played
Hussey?
at Norfolk Catholic, huh?
Bobby Hussey?
No.
He was the coach, wasn't he? He was one of the coaches.
He played both of them. Charlie Thomas. Is it Thomas? Charlie Thomas.
Yeah.
Who,
Bobby Beecher. Bobby
the,
Beecher.
No.
I'm
Charlie,
out of Bobby's, coach.
Charlie. But anyway, both of them, one of them was from Harrisonburg, the other one from Norfolk, and they played junior college ball at Ferrum. At that time, Ferrum was a junior college, and then they both went to Tech and were the guards on Tech's NIT team. And one of them from Harrisonburg, I'm pretty sure was Bobby Stevens. Bobby Stevens was the other one. He was from Norfolk Catholic, and then by way of Ferrum, and the other one was Charlie Thomas by way of Ferrum. Those were the two guards on Tech's NIT team. I don't know why I even got into that, but anyway. So that's it.
It's cool. It's cool, though. Marty, how much I was thinking about coach and what you're talking about the program. How much does that remind you when you go to Augusta, right? Because the awe, the vibe, the understanding of how this place is special, what you went through every day there with coach, the hill, whatever it was. And now you think you understand the rules and how it feels similar to me, right?
There's just an understanding of self-accountability.
Yeah.
And what's so great about Augusta is if you're walking down the fairway and there's a pimento cheese sandwich wrapper on the ground, by God, you pick it up.
Picking it up.
You don't walk by it. It's just understood. You pick it up and you put it in the trash bin, put it in the receptacle. And everybody there has such overwhelming, palpable reverence for the grounds that it permeates the people.
Sure.
You have this unique way of being the best version of self there because of the understanding that that's what is the demand. And I can't describe it, man. Like so, all right, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you guys a great, great story. So a couple years ago, I was standing every Sunday of the Masters tournament, about 2:00 in the afternoon, when CBS is in, doing their broadcast and whatnot. We're watching golf for the most part and waiting until the end of the tournament to then get our marching orders for whatever reporting we're going to do. And I always do the final interview with the winner. That might be 11:30 at night. With Rory last year, it was about 11:20 at 5 or so at night. Scotty Scheffler the year before that, same deal, because they win the tournament, celebrate with their loved ones and family, walk through all the patrons to sign their card. There's a brief period. Then they come to the green jacket ceremony, on and on, right? And then they have a gathering with all the membership where they have some bourbon and have a meal and they take pictures with all the members,
Sure.
whole thing. So there's hours that pass before they come to do their post. They also do their formal press conference.
Yep.
We're like last. Well, anyway, at 2:00 on Sunday, 2:30, I will go down to Amen Corner. I will leave the press area and I will walk down to Amen Corner and I will stand in line at the concession stand and I will buy 2 beers. I buy a beer for me and a beer for my daddy. And I will sit down at Amen Corner by myself and I will drink a beer for me and a beer for my dad every Sunday. Because every year, Dad and I watched the Masters together. The very first one I remember was Jack Nicklaus, 1986. The Bears out of hibernation. It was just, the yellow polo, the whole thing. The putt on 17, yes, sir, all of it. And I remember playing in the yard with my buddies. And Daddy walking outside and saying, boy, you need to get in here. You need to be watching this. Because Jack was 46 years old at that time.
Right.
So every year, Dad and I watched him. I wasn't a huge golf guy as a kid. I'm a sicko now, but as a kid, I wasn't that big into it. But we watched it every year. All right. So I go down there to Amen Corner and I drink a couple beers for Dad and me. Well, I was sitting down there one year. This was maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago. I don't know. And I was talking, ironically, to Lauren Sisler, who also went to Giles High School. And she was there that day as a fan. And I ran into her by happenstance, and she was getting ready to write her book. And she was asking me a bunch of questions about, like, the writing process and being an author and the publishing process. And we were having a great conversation. I was sitting there holding these 2 beers. And all of a sudden, I'm looking at Lauren to my right, and all of a sudden, there is a face right here. And I turn and look, and it is a gallery attendant. And I went, uh-oh, because he said, Mr. Smith, I'm going to need you to come with me, please. And I went, oh, no, I'm getting kicked out of here forever. What did I do wrong? It was a gentleman who will remain nameless but has become a great friend to me, who is actually the 12th tee box Amen Corner gallery attendant who stands on the tee box at the 12th and watches the gallery to make sure nobody gets out of line. And he had come all the way up through the gallery to grab me, and I said, am I in trouble? He goes, no, sir. There are some members who would like for you to take their seats. And I go down there to the edge of the 12th tee box. The rope is going across my thighs. And I'm sitting there holding 2 beers, and I'm watching, all of the stars of the game come up to the 12th tee box. They're 2 feet away from me. Most gorgeous, like, you can't describe this experience. It's indescribable. Okay? So that sets the scene for what I'm about to say. 3rd year, I think I'm sitting there. Hideki Matsuyama. I think this might have been 2022 because I think Hideki had just won the Masters the previous year in 21. So Hideki walks off the 11th green up to the 12th tee box, and I see the guy that brought me down go over the rope and walk up through the gallery, and there is these 2 young boys. I'm going to guess 10 and 8, 11 and 9, somewhere in there, of Asian descent. He goes up there and gets these 2 little boys and brings them all the way down to the 2nd row to these 2 open seats right by the 12th tee box. And they're shaking because it's obvious that Hideki Matsuyama is their hero. This is a Masters champion. This is a gentleman that represents his country in such a beautiful way, is an icon over there beyond description. Hideki tees off on the 12th. Stuffs it to, 8 feet. One of the hardest golf shots in the world because it's swirling up there. And that air is swirling up top. Not an easy shot. And a lot of guys lose the golf tournament there. Stuffs it to 8 feet. hits this massive beaver pelt divot. I mean, it's a foot long, and it's 10 foot down the fairway. And we're watching Hideki and his caddy throw the clubs on the shoulder, and they're walking to Hogan Bridge to go over Rays Creek to the 12th green. And my buddy, the gallery attendant, walks over, picks up that divot, folds it back over top of itself like a sandwich, and Hideki's tee is still sticking out the top of that divot. And he walks over with this hallowed soul from the 12th tee box at Augusta National Golf Club that has been hit by Hideki Matsuyama and hands it to those little boys.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And every single one of us in attendance that witnessed it had tears in our eyes, and some of us were outright crying.
Some of us.
That encapsulates the magic.
That's cool.
And those little boys, I almost said it. My buddy got those little boys, gave them that divot, and took them back up to their parents, up in the shadow of the grandstand up there of the stands, and you just watch those little boys. And my prayer is that somehow they got that back home wherever they were from, whether that's Texas or Tokyo, and we're able to keep that as a beautiful memento of this moment in time that, again, when you're at Augusta, you're watching it all through the film strip of your soul.
That's awesome.
And it's just a beautiful place, man. It's just the way they run it, the precision with which they run it, the way they are so good at advancing. They stay ahead of every curve while preserving the past. And that's really hard to do today.
Hey, Marty,
That's so cool.
you're talking about something that I don't even know how to describe it. They have, over years and years and years and years and years, created this thing, a reputation, and what in football or basketball we would refer to as a program. You got to build a program, not a single season or a single tournament. That's not the right word, but you say, for example, in football, you don't want to just have a good football team one year and that's it. You want it so it's repetitive year in and year out. It's a program. And same thing with what you're talking about there. I mean, they've got, that's not the word for it, program, but
it's really an institution.
Translates to the same thing.
There are certain sporting events that transcend their sport. And the Indianapolis 500 does, the Super Bowl does, the Masters tournament does, the Kentucky Derby does, the Daytona 500 does. I mean, there are certain sporting events that have just become such institutional must-see. You're going to have it on your television if that's the only thing you watch all year in that sport. You're going to be watching that. And because because of the baseline understanding that whoever wins it is walking into history. And that was what was so cool about standing on the 18th green at Augusta National in 2019, watching Tiger Woods walk up the 18th fairway. And the place was unhinged, irreverent, in a way it's never unhinged or irreverent, because every single person there not only knew they were witnessing history, but they were a part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And wow. I could go on for days. I could tell stories until we run out of oxygen.
It's awesome.
That place is special, man. I'm so looking forward to getting there again. I always do. And I just bow my head when I walk into place every morning. I just bow my head and say, Lord, I don't know how you got me here from Parisburg, Virginia. I'll never understand it. But please continue to use me as a vessel for trying to share the best of what sports offers. And that's the storytelling piece of people giving me their truth, whatever they're like. Look what Gary Woodland just did. I mean,
I was
Gary
watching
Woodland,
that on TV this morning about him. Good God, what a story, man.
Yep,
I'm telling you.
he's a coach. I'm going to tell you something. You would have loved to have coached him. He was an incredible basketball player who took a basketball scholarship to a Division II school, then left that to take a Division I scholarship to play golf at the University of Kansas. So he was an incredible athlete. And then he moves on. He becomes a major champion. And ultimately, 3 years ago, there is a lesion on his brain. So he had surgery to remove that, went through a lot of difficult rehab. And with that came a lot of post-traumatic stress, which he's been very open and vulnerable about in the last month, because it was haunting him. He would be standing over a golf ball about to break down. And ultimately decided and realized the only way I can vanquish and exorcise these demons is to put them out into the world and let people know what I'm going through. And he did that. And now he's gone and won a PGA Tour event again, has become a beacon for so many people. There's people in my life who are going through anxiety and depression and really difficult mental and emotional moments right now. And that guy is a beacon for people going through those things. And now he's earned his way. You know, he'll be at Augusta. And every single person on the PGA Tour, first of all, he's like the nicest guy. The nicest guy. There's a lot of people who don't take the time. I'll never forget when I met him. I walked on the driving range at the PGA Championship in 2021 at Kiowa. And the very first person that walked over to me to say welcome was Gary Woodland. I felt like an outsider. I don't want to say unwelcome. That's too dramatic, but I was a little out of my depth. And he walked off his golf ball and walked over to me, shook my hand and said, welcome. And he wanted to talk to me about college basketball.
That's interesting.
And you won't find a single person that speaks anything but overwhelming admiration for Gary Woodland. Congratulations to him.
That's awesome.
Hey, Marty, I want you to eat a pimento and cheese sandwich for me.
I will, Coach.
Because my mother used to make homemade pimento and cheese sandwiches in the summertime.
Love that.
I can see her now grating the cheese and cutting up the pimentos, and those were the best thing in the world. So eat one for me.
I'll do that.
You got to have your extra beer and now have a sandwich for Coach, man.
I will do that.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
There's actually a little secret. My little secret is what you do is you take a pimento, you get a pimento and you get an egg salad, and you split them in half, and then you put the pimento and the egg salad together, and that is a Southern delicacy.
Okay.
Well, gentlemen, listen, this is true. This feels like reverence for me, and I know our listeners every month when we do this. I mean, to see you two together and everything, it's special every month. I look so forward to it. I know everybody else does too. So
Thank you, my friend, for giving us the platform. And
no, it's awesome.
Well, I enjoy this, and forgive me for going on and on and on certain things.
That's what we're doing it for, man.
Don't ever apologize. That's
just
what it's
what
about.
I do. And of course, you got Marty over here. Marty, you don't know. I am so proud of you, and I know your daddy. He and your mother too, for that matter, would be so proud of you and are so proud of you, for what you've accomplished. I mean, it's amazing. You've just done so well, and we are so proud of you. And you talk about Lauren Sisler.
She was just on the show.
She was friends with my daughter in high school. Not super close friends, but she overcame a lot. I don't want to get into the details, but she is one to be admired as well.
Question. She told her story. She told her story on the show. It was incredible. Incredible.
Yeah. She has had tremendous fortitude to get through all of that with everything that happened with her parents, and just
well, and
in a lot of cases.
She went to school at Rutgers.
Yep.
All right. And my daughter lives like 5 minutes from Rutgers. Okay. And to go from rural Giles County to what's New Brunswick, New Jersey, it's like day and night, buddy. It's a totally different environment. And just to do that as a young kid, and everything, that in and of itself is amazing.
It is. Well, Marty, Dawg, stay safe. Have a great time. We're thinking about you down there.
Thank you, my friends. I appreciate it. If y'all get a chance next Sunday, Easter Sunday, that story that I'm doing about going home to Rory's home golf course will be the big feature on Sports Center that day, the SC featured piece. I also I dusted off my pen and wrote a piece on it for ESPN.com, so it'll be up there as well.
Cool.
Really fulfilling. And I'll tell you, having sat across from Rory, I went to Bay Hill and sat across from him about this and really dove into the emotion of what he released by finally winning the Masters tournament 1 year ago and completing the career Grand Slam. And he, to me, is the most thoughtful interview subject in sports. And I think you guys will really enjoy it because it's about the human condition every bit as much as it's about the athletic accomplishment. So anyway, Coach, I love you. I'm so grateful for you. I thank you for your kind words, and thank you for being such a wonderful example for all of us. Every one of us,
Marty.
Still carry those lessons with us every day, and all of us still have post-traumatic stress from the hill and one-on-ones.
That's right. And you wouldn't change.
Rick, you're the man, brother.
My final words are, I loved every minute of it.
Yeah,
I did what I loved, and what else can you ask for?
All right, we'll see y'all in April.
All right, gentlemen. All right, man. See you in April. Stay
Good
safe.
seeing you, Rick.
Later, guys. All right, you too, Coach. Take care, Marty, Dawg. Y'all be good. Take care. Great stuff. All right, there you go. Doesn't get any better than that. And that's going to call it a show for today. Thanks to Coach Rags. Thanks to Marty. I mean, come on. Coach Elmo, thank you. I know you've been watching. We'll be back tomorrow on the Tuesday edition. All right. Everybody take care. What a great way to get your week started, huh? Think about the words that were said, the wisdom, and, Coach's lessons. Even though we didn't play for Giles, I played for Coach Hicks, Pulaski County. It's a similar vibe, and it stays with you forever, man. And he's still educating us. Coach may be retired, but he's still educating us on a daily basis here on this show on a monthly basis. So thanks so much to them and to you for watching. We'll see you tomorrow on the Tuesday edition, everybody. Have a great rest of your Monday. Take care.